welcome to another edition of the Plus One interview. And today we have a special guest. He coming all the way from North Carolina to be with me, Mr. C.L. Brown. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. It's almost here. We're getting closer and closer to the college basketball season. Last week was the start of practices. Did you think we would get here?
Well, I'm not celebrating just yet.
Yeah.
Still got a ways to go. But no, the short answer is, even as far back as July, when I was talking to different college coaches from different conferences and everything throughout the nation, a lot of them were pessimistic that this would actually happen. Basically, everyone was rooting for football, though, that they would be successful enough that they would be able to complete games to where it would seem feasible. So I think there's certainly a lot of positivity now, more so than it was in the summer and even going back to when they canceled the tournament last spring. But there's still a lot of caution and, there's still a lot of let's see this thing through.
And another big thing for all these teams is scheduling wise, because they had to cut down their games to about 27 games from the original 30 plus games that they play. And a lot of teams, the issues they've been having for the past couple of weeks or months is scheduling, getting the proper opponents, and there's a lot of things that they're looking into when they're trying to schedule as far as logistics and just how they're going to be able to keep teams safe. That's something that's a big factor in this as well.
Yeah, I think that the scheduling right now is still such an issue that that's part of the reason why they're not so sure how the season is going to play out. I mean, when you look at it, them saying that 13 games will be the minimum, they're expecting that a bunch of games are going to get canceled.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, or not able to be rescheduled and that kind of thing. So, and I think at one point the ACC was even considering, and I mean, going back to discussions they had during the summer months, or even considering not playing non-conference at all and just keeping everything in-house within the conference. Now that changed, but it just goes to show that it's fluid. I mean, the whole thinking with scheduling is a fluid situation. And it will be a little bit odd when we see tournaments like the Maui Invitational that's now going to be played in Asheville, North Carolina, in order to, just trying to make it safer and more feasible for teams to be there. So I think a lot of those kind of little bubbles, if you will, situations that will pop up throughout the non-conference schedule.
What is the protocol that the NCAA is taking as far as testing for these schools? Is it up to the NCAA, or are just individual schools have their own criteria for testing players, staff, and everybody around the programs?
Yeah, right now I think it's more or less falling on the conferences. They have individual conferences are establishing the guidelines that they want going forward. And when you look at how football did it, I mean, that even included by position groups. So if you don't have, basically a standard number is 7. If you don't have 7 healthy offensive linemen, then you can't play that game, which is a good way to make sure, you're not just sending kids out there to get pummeled and not be able to compete like they would normally compete. I wonder if something similar might be done for basketball, just in terms of number of players, probably not necessarily by position, but I would imagine they would have something similar in mind. And a lot of the conferences seem to be on the same page, not necessarily the exact same. I should say conferences by level, because, the major conferences, they can afford to do more. The major schools can afford to do more in terms of testing and everything like that. So, but even the mid-majors and the low majors will have a certain criteria in stone in order to try and make this thing as safe as possible.
And then we also have to look at, as far as fans, will fans be in the stands? Will they be half well, they limited attendance in these games. That's another aspect. Me personally, I'm watching college football and I'm seeing some of these schools. They're having their stadiums kind of look packed and full, and I just don't. I don't think they should have fans in these games. Me personally, just because we're still not out of it yet, and just having people in one proximity like that, and some people don't even follow the protocols of wearing masks and all that.
Well, basketball will be different too because it's indoors. It's one thing to say you can have. I was at Florida State this past weekend, their game with North Carolina, and they had 18,000 fans in the stand, which it doesn't seem like a lot in a stadium that seats over 80 or whatever. But it's surreal, with what we're going through in the pandemic, and to see that many people out. But for basketball, what do you do? Especially a place like Cameron Indoor Stadium, that's a small, compact gym. Like, how many fans would be acceptable in that situation? Because the way that court is configured, you figure, at least during normal times, the students, I get stuff sprayed on my laptop all the time from students yelling and things like that. Like, so what do you do? I mean, that could end up getting to players too. I mean, you would assume everybody's going to be required to wear a mask, but still, it just being in a situation like that, I don't know what the answer is going to be right now. The state of North Carolina and many states have allowed football at least to have a certain percentage amount of fans. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out with basketball.
Yeah. As far as this upcoming season, there's going to be some players, we got people transferred. Sharif O'Neal going to LSU, Mac McClung going to Texas Tech. There's a whole wave of transfers. But as far as the ACC, one team I know that's looking to kind of redeem themselves is University of North Carolina after, not having the tournament, kind of maybe have people forgotten how bad of a season they had last season. But they did get some good recruits coming in. Just, what do you think the difference for this year's team is going to be as far as last year? Because last year everything just went bad for them.
Yeah, trust me, no one's forgotten. But I think the not having the NCAA tournament made it a little bit easier because there was no one who came out of last season celebrating. Everybody, the way it ended, everybody just, it was a downer for everybody in college basketball. But yeah, Carolina has one of the top recruiting classes in the nation. Caleb Love at point guard might be the name that a lot of people are familiar with. I think maybe a sleeper in the bunch is Day'Ron Sharp, a power forward type, who his progress, when you look back to, say, his sophomore year in high school, he wasn't really that highly recruited. And one of the assistant coaches, Steve Robinson, I believe at North Carolina, was the one who kind of spotted him and saw his potential. And surely from that time until the end of his senior year at high school, he's just climbed up in recruiting charts and everybody's opinion of him. So I think he has a chance to make a real impact early for that team.
As for their rivals, Duke, if there was a tournament, they were considered one of the teams that had the potential of winning it all last year. They lose a few guys, Trey Jones, the leaper, I forget his name. Cassius Stanley. They declared for the draft, and Vernon Carey, he also declared for the draft. So losing those top guys, but as Duke always does, they bring in a new wave of players. Is this still going to be a team that will have a chance for the title?
I mean, I would expect, long as Coach K is still on the sidelines there, they'll be in the mix. I think it will be interesting to see how it plays out because point guard is so crucial, and Trey Jones was one of the best in the nation that they're losing. Doesn't matter who they have coming in because I feel like he was so in command of what happened on the floor. So those are big shoes to fill. But they do have obviously a lot of talent, and I'm excited for them about some of the returnees. It's funny, in this day and age of one and done classes, particularly at Kentucky and Duke, because they seem to have the most turnover. from year to year. We don't talk a lot or enough about the guys who return. And I think Wendell Moore, he'll be a sophomore, and Matthew Hurt, I think they're in position to make some big leaps this year for Duke, and they'll be playing well. And a person who I think maybe a lot of people aren't as high on as I am for Duke, Joey Baker, who will be a junior. He's billed as a sharpshooter, coming out of high school, and maybe hadn't always lived up to that. But I think this is going to be a big year for Joey Baker too.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the ACC conference, Florida State, they had the best overall record in the regular season, going 16-4. Virginia second. Louisville, they were also another team. They had high championship hopes with all the talent that they had. Do you think we're going to see another tight race for that ACC title this year?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the possibilities in the ACC. I do think that, and speaking of point guards, I think Louisville is going to have one of the best in the conference, if not in the nation, and David Johnson. He was a freshman last year that they kind of brought along slowly, but you would see the flashes in his game. When they won at Duke, he had a huge game, and I just felt like for him to come in as a freshman in that situation, in that environment, and play the way he did, you can handle anything if you can go in Cameron to do what he did. So I also think Florida State, it seems like every year, at least especially recently, people tend to underestimate what Leonard Hamilton has in Tallahassee. And I think Florida State is going to be a contender for the ACC title this year.
And the thing with Florida State is Leonard Hamilton gets his type of players that'll stay 3 or 4 years. And then you look up, you're playing a veteran team. And that's one thing about college basketball. When you get the latter part of the season, usually the veteran teams come out on top. They find ways to win as opposed to the team with the young guys. So Florida State, that's one of the reasons they've been so successful all these years. They always have a veteran team.
Yes, true. And I think I didn't expound on Virginia, but I mean, Virginia probably hit the lottery with transfers last year, or the transfer market, I should say, because the kid from Marquette that they have, Hauser, coming in, I think he's going to do big things for Virginia this year, and Tony Bennett. So, and they'll be in that top tier too, competing for the ACC title.
Yeah, one team, the Eagles, the BC Eagles, they're an intriguing team. With covering them last year, when they would play, they played to their competition. So they had that upset win over Virginia at home. They played Louisville tough. They played Duke tough. But then when they play teams that they should beat, they played down to their competition. That was one big issue I had with Boston College last year watching. And then when it came to execution down the stretch in tight games, they panicked too much. They forced 3-pointers, or they try to go 1-on-5. And maybe this year it'll be different with some of the guys that they have that weren't playing last year, and some of the recruits that they have. But that's one thing I want to see with this team, is have they matured, especially offensively in tight games.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing about the ACC. I think most years it's tough to look at the schedule and say who is an easy win, or who you're supposed to beat, because everybody has talent, even though some of the teams that finish in the bottom might not have it across the board. And I felt like with Boston College, it was more like their margin of error was very thin. Yeah. So if certain things didn't go right during the game, it was going to be difficult for them to overcome those kind of mistakes. But and I saw them live when they came down and won in Chapel Hill in a game where they were the ones who made the right plays down the stretch in Carolina. If I remember correctly, Carolina didn't get a shot off when they had a chance to win the game. Or it was a very bad shot. I remember Cole Anthony kind of pounding the ball, waiting for a pick to come that didn't come until late, and it just kind of threw off the whole offense. So we'll see. I think Jim Christian is in a tough spot at Boston College right now.
I think with all the circumstances that happened, they were on that verge of letting him go after that season, but with everything that's happened, and I think they wanted to give him another shot at it, because the because of everything. But
It's a tough job.
yeah, it is. So this year it's one of those make or break years for him this upcoming season. So we'll see what happens. Oh man, we were running out of time. Please let them know if they want to read your stuff, if they want to follow you, plug your social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yes, well, I'm with the Raleigh News Observer. My Twitter account is @CLBrownHoops. Same thing for my YouTube page, which when basketball starts up, I'll be posting a lot more. That's also CL Brown Hoops, and my Instagram, CL Brown Hoops. I try to make it easy for the people. Just a name to remember.
Hey, the simple is always the best way. Mr. CL Brown. And thank you, man, for coming along. The LASIK and all that, but thank you for
I
coming
appreciate
along.
you having me.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach back out to you at some point during the season just to.
Oh, for sure.
Everything gets going, but thank you once again.
Yeah, I apologize for being late.
No, better late than never, right?
No doubt, no doubt.
You guys have been watching the Plus One interview. Have a good day.